Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and today we have more Shadows Over Innistrad spoilers for you, actually 11 brand new cards to take a look at. So there's a little bit of debate online whether today is actually the first day of official spoiler season for Shadows Over Innistrad. Mark Rosewater had sent out a message on his Tumblr saying it actually begins next Monday, but today sure looks like it. So we got a whole bunch of new cards, we got packaging to look at, so maybe we'll continue to see spoilers throughout the week, or maybe this is the only day we'll see them. I guess we'll find out. But every day that we have spoilers, we'll be back with a video, so it's definitely a great time to subscribe to the channel. We'll try to compile everything for you and give you some at least quick and dirty analysis of the cards. So having said that, let's jump in and let's look at packaging first. So the first thing you're going to see here is the pre-release pack, and similar to the Zendikar and Oath packs, you're going to get a deck box. So on the left is the outside cover, and on the right is the actual deck box itself. I'm glad they're continuing this, even though I know the material isn't super strong and it tends to kind of get beat up pretty quick. At least you have something to put your cards in during the event. So kudos to Wizards for continuing this. This time it looks like it's a little bit wider maybe, so I don't know, that's interesting. It almost looks like 1.5 the width of the previous one, but again, it might just be the picture. Here's the other products. You have, of course, your booster box, you have your deck builder's toolkit, and you have your fat pack. So those will be the official products for Shadows Over Innistrad. Let's take a closer look at the fat pack. Contents look the same, as you can see here, just what you can expect from all the recent fat packs. And you do see, it looks like maybe a little spoiler to some swamp art there on the top of the stack. And here's your booster pack wrappers. You see there we have Arlen Cord, we have Sorin, we have Jace, and we have the new Avacyn that was spoiled yesterday. So you can check out that video on the channel as well. So yeah, they look actually pretty cool. I kind of like the blue. I dig the dark blue black coloring on them. I think it looks real neat. The purple Innistrad ones I thought were okay, but this looks really striking. Another thing we learned today is there is going to be a second checklist, which we kind of speculated on. This checklist is going to be for flip cards, it looks like, for rare and maybe mythic rare flip cards. And the one that was leaked previously seems to have the common and uncommon. So there's quite a few flip cards in the set. Even though they didn't show us the names of the cards, they just showed us the one card that we'll be talking about shortly. But at least gives us an idea of the colors they'll be in and how many we can expect from the set. Alright, next thing we're going to look at is actually a card that's previously been spoiled and is actually in the Blessed vs. Cursed duel deck, and that's Mindrack Demon. The reason I'm showing you this is the first time we're seeing this card in its actual Innistrad art, so I won't go into any more detail than that. We've talked about this card many times now in the past, but I just wanted you to see the new art reveal. And the next card, which was a card that was actually leaked a while back, so again we did a whole video on it, so I won't go into crazy detail, but Clip Wings has been confirmed as a common in Shadows Over Innistrad. And having said that, let's move on to the new stuff. First card is Reaper of Flight Moonsilver, and that costs 2 white, 3 generic. It's a 3/3 Angel of Flying, and if you have Delirium, when you can sacrifice another creature, it gets +2/+1 till end of turn. So this is actually kind of cool. This is a white Fallen Angel if you have Delirium. So I like the flavor there. I like what they did with that. Now let's talk about the card itself and its power level. It's a little too expensive, I think, for what it does to see play in Standard Constructed, for example, and it can't sacrifice to itself like Nantuko Husk, so that's going to keep you from pulling off some shenanigans with that. So I think this is definitely a good limited card, though. Now, if your deck has a lot of opportunity to get cards in the graveyard, so you know that relatively frequently you'll have Delirium, then this is going to be a great card. If you ever played with Fallen Angel in Limited, you know that's actually a pretty good card. You get a 3/3 flyer for 5, but just the fact that you have the ability to start sacrificing your creatures to pump it +2/+1 makes your opponent always in an awkward situation where sometimes they just are forced to block it to stay alive, or they are forced to maybe take a little bit of extra damage because they know you can take out an important creature if they block with it. So they always end up being in kind of a non-profitable block situation. Now, having said that, If I don't think I'm going to be able to get Delirium with any consistency in my limited deck, then this might not make the cut. Paying 5 for a 3/3 flyer is fine, and if I need flyers, it's going to be okay for me, but there might be better things I could be doing in the 5 slot, so it's not an auto-include, but I think it'll be a good limited card. Next we have Theraban Inspector. This costs a white. It's a 1/2 human soldier, and when this enters the battlefield, investigate. So the first thing I'll say about this card is it appears that our Inspector is investigating maybe some Eldrazi Emrakul type tentacles that are on the wall there. So that's pretty interesting. That's all I'll say about that for right now. But as far as the card itself goes, you got to think of it this way. Do you want a 2 white 1/2 creature that cantrips? Because that's kind of what you're getting. But it is a 1-drop for 1/2 power toughness, which is not horrible and limited in certain decks. So if you have an aggressive build and you want to throw something out there where you know you're going to be able to garner some card advantage a little bit later in the game, you could play this in limited. It's probably not always going to make your cut. As far as standard goes, I don't really see it getting there. Now, if there is a white weenie deck that's very powerful and it really is looking for more ways to investigate, then perhaps it runs a couple copies of this, but I think that's going out there on a limb. I think for the most part this will just be a limited card. This is Just the Wind. Costs 1 blue, 1 generic. It's an instant, return target creature to its owner's hand, and it has a madness cost of 1 blue. So this is a great card for you in limited. If you're in blue, you need those tempo plays. This is going to be a tempo play at common, and it's very affordable, only 2 mana, and maybe in certain situations only 1 mana. So this is great. I don't see it doing a whole lot outside of limited, but it's going to be very good for you in blue decks in sealed in draft. Next we have a rare, and this is Thing in the Ice. It's a transformation card. It transforms into Awoken Horror. Costs 1 blue, 1 generic. It's a horror, 0/4 defender. Thing in the Ice enters the battlefield with 4 ice counters on it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, remove an ice counter from Thing in the Ice. Then, if it has no ice counters on it, transform it. When this creature transforms into Awoken Horror, return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hand, and it's a 7/8 Kraken Horror. So I think this card is actually kind of a big deal. It reminds me a little bit of Dark Depths, which is kind of awesome just from a flavor standpoint. But let's talk about limited first. This card's probably not super great in limited because you don't really have the consistency in instant and sorceries. However, there are some limited decks that are going to be looking for a 0/4 defender for 2. Those are going to be your slower decks, maybe a little more methodical controlling decks. You're trying to lengthen the game a little bit. So it does have a role in limited, but probably a very, no pun intended, limited one. Once you get into constructed, that's where this can really shine. This is going to be really fun to play with in Commander, although odds are it'll probably get destroyed before you can get all the counters off of it, unless you kind of play with some other shenanigans to remove the counters. Other than that, I think this is standard playable if there's a blue-white control deck that is able to grab some hold in the metagame. Now, if there is, this could be a finisher for a deck like that. I wouldn't go as far as to say Legacy, but I could see this potentially in Modern in the right deck. Maybe in a Delver build, something like that, or a more controlling deck in Modern. I wouldn't be completely shocked, just because 7/8 is just a lot of power toughness, but more importantly, you're basically returning all creatures to their owner's hands, which means you can play with different to the battlefield effects, and you're also just clearing the path for the 7/8 just ground pounder to come in there. So this is a pretty cool card. I'm pretty excited about this one. I'm looking forward to kind of see what ends up happening with this. Next is another transform card. It's Elusive Tormentor. Costs 2 black, 2 generic. It's going to transform into Insidious Mist. But this is a 4/4 Vampire Wizard. And if you pay 1, discard a card, transform Elusive Tormentor. Transforms into an Elemental 0/1 Hexproof Indestructible. Can't block, can't be blocked. And whenever this attacks, if it isn't blocked, you may pay a black and 2 generic. If you do, transform it. So there's a little too much going on here for constructed. It's just a little too pricey, I think, at 2 black and 2 colorless to be a card that's going to see a lot of play in standard or anything like that. However, this is a limited bomb. This is a fantastic limited card. So you're paying 4/4/4/4, which is great. You also have a Madness Enabler built in, which is awesome. And once you flip this card, yeah, if you have the extra mana lying around, you can just get in there for 4 damage and flip it back. That's kind of awesome. And if you have some equipment, I mean, think back to Invisible Stalker. Put a little bit of equipment on this thing. It can't be blocked. It's hexproof. It's indestructible. It's really, really, really hard to deal with. And you just got a pounder that you can just keep getting in there for damage. So I really like this card a lot. I think it's really cool, and I think it's a better design than Invisible Stalker was. That card almost seemed too powerful. It just made some games just not fun. I even played that card in Legacy and actually won with it, so go figure. But this is a much better design. It's making you jump through a few hoops to get to that point, but you can still get to that point, and it also does other stuff too, so I think that's really awesome. Next is Farbog Revenant, and this costs 1 black, 2 generic. It's a 1/3 spirit. It has Skulk and Lifelink. I like the Skulk mechanic. I think that it's going to help you deal with board stalls, and you won't have a lot of slow grindy games. If players have a couple Skulk creatures in their library, they're going to be able to force the game to progress, and that's a good thing. Having said that, this is a fine limited card, I think. I don't mind playing this, even though it costs 3. I'm basically almost guaranteed to get in there every turn with 1 damage and also gain 1 life off of it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I like the fact that it's 3 toughness. Ravenous Bloodseeker, 1 red, 1 generic, Vampire Berserker. This is a 1/3, discard a card, and it gets +2/-2 till end of turn. So again, this is probably going to be relegated mostly to limited, of course, but this is pretty good. Again, it's a madness enabler. It's pretty cheap, only costing you 2, and you might be able to get some decent damage in early before your opponent can put some blockers out, or maybe you have a little bit of removal and you just get in there with some early damage. I think this is a very good limited card for those reasons. Alright, next we have another flip card, and this is Hinterland Logger, which turns into Timber Shredder. And this is a human werewolf, 2/1. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform into Hinterland Logger. Becomes a trample for 2, and at the beginning of each upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells last turn, transform this back. So this is just basically, hey, new players who've never played in Old Innistrad, here's a common werewolf that's going to help you understand how werewolf transformation works. So that's all it is. But having said that, it's actually a decent limited card, I think, considering it's a 2-drop. You get a 2/1 out of it, which is not super great, but if you can transform into a 4/2 trample, yeah, you're going to get a little damage across. You're probably going to take out one of your opponent's creatures with this. It's not bad. Not bad for 2 mana. So again, I think this is a decent limited card. Next is Soul Swallower. Costs 2 green, 2 generic. It's a worm, 3/3 with trample, and it has the Delirium ability that whenever you do have Delirium, at the beginning of your upkeep, it gets 3 +1/+1 counters. So that gets pretty big pretty quick if you have Delirium. You could potentially play this and be attacking in with a 6/6 Trampler next turn and a 9/9 Trampler the following turn. These type of cards that snowball like that can be very, very, very good and limited. I don't think I have to tell you that. So obviously this is going to be a limited bomb. Could this see some constructed play? If Delirium is a thing constructed, then yes, I think it's good enough to get there. So I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a black-green Delirium/Madness deck or something like that. It's a little too early to tell since we haven't seen a whole lot of the set, but it's possible at this point. So keep an eye on this card. Could be really cool in Standard, perhaps, if the pieces are there. But regardless, awesome limited card. And it's going to be fun, too, in your formats, also like Commander and Cube. Magnifying Glass. Pay 3 for an artifact, tap to add colorless mana, or pay 4 and tap to investigate. This one's not super exciting for me, especially at uncommon. So basically you're paying 3 to cast it, and then you have to pay 4 to investigate, and then another 2 to actually draw the card. So you're paying 3 for this, and then another 6 and tapping it to draw a card. It's just, there's better ways to do that. There's cheaper ways to do that, I'm sure. So I'm not super excited about this. The only thing I can say about this from a limited point of view is sometimes you're really desperate for some ramp. If you're really desperate for some colorless ramp, well, here you go. There it is for you. Other than that, you're probably not going to be playing this a whole lot. All right, last card of the day is Warped Landscape, and this is interesting. It's a common land, and you can tap it for colorless mana, or you can pay 2 and tap and sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, shuffle your library. So what's the purpose of this? Mostly this is to help you get your Delirium in the limited environment. So this is a way to get a land in the graveyard, which is a pretty big deal because that's going to be the hardest card type probably, I would assume, to get into the graveyard. Having said that, this really is just to help you enable the Delirium in limited. I mean, maybe we'll see some more Eldrazi stuff happening in the next set or something like that, where the colorless mana might mean a little more in certain environments, but that's a lot of speculation at this point. So those are our 11 brand new cards that we looked at, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts, which ones you like, which ones you're excited about, what else you hope to see over the next few weeks when spoilers are coming out. And as always, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.